We're all obsessed with saving time, aren't we? We cram our calendars, optimize our schedules, and chase productivity hacks in a frantic race against the clock. We treat time like a resource we're always about to run out of. But what if the real power isn't in saving time, but in weaponizing it? What if I told you one of the greatest swordsmen in history was defeated not by a better blade, but by a broken timeline? This is the story of how Miyamoto Musashi shattered his enemy's mind before a single sword was drawn, and how you can use the same strategy to win the war inside your own head. To really get this strategy, you have to understand the man who created it. Miyamoto Musashi was a 17th century ronin, a masterless samurai who wandered Japan and was supposedly undefeated in over 60 duels. But he wasn't just a swordsman. He was a philosopher, an artist, and a master strategist. His whole life was a rejection of comfort and a relentless chase for mastery through discipline. In his legendary book, The Book of Five Rings, Musashi outlines his philosophy on strategy through 5 elements: earth, water, fire, wind, and void. These aren't just physical things, but states of mind, different ways to approach a conflict. And the core lesson is this: true victory isn't won when swords clash. It's won in the moments before the fight even starts. It's won in your opponent's head. As Musashi wrote, you win battles by knowing the enemy's timing and using a timing which the enemy does not expect. And there's no more brilliant or brutal example of this than his legendary duel with Sasaki Kojiro, a battle decided not by the speed of a sword, but by the cold, calculated weaponization of time itself. The year is 1612. All of Japan is buzzing about 2 titans of the sword. In one corner, you have Sasaki Kojiro, a man called the Demon of the Western Provinces. He's a celebrated master with his own school, famous for his exceptionally long katana, nicknamed the laundry drying pole. Kojiro is the picture of perfect technique, tradition, and discipline. He's at the top of his game, known for a strike so fast it was said he could cut a swallow out of the air. In the other corner is Miyamoto Musashi, undefeated, but a wanderer, a rogue who fights with 2 swords, who scoffs at formal dojos, and cares more about raw effectiveness than polished ceremony. To finally settle who was the greatest, a duel was arranged by a local lord, Hosokawa Tadaoki, on the remote Ganryu Island. The duel was set for the morning of April 13th, 1612. Now, the exact details are shrouded in 400 years of legend. But the story that has been passed down is a masterclass in psychological warfare. The story goes that Sasaki Kojiro arrived right on time, looking perfect. His prized blade was polished, his clothes were immaculate, and his mind was a calm, sharp weapon. He stood on the shore and waited. And waited. The sun started to climb. Minutes stretched into an hour. The officials got restless. Kojiro's perfect calm began to crack. An hour turned into 2. The sea breeze started to feel less like a whisper and more like a taunt. The sun beat down. Impatience soured into irritation, and irritation curdled into rage. Every moment he was forced to wait was a calculated insult, a deliberate crack in the foundation of his confidence. Finally, as the legend claims, 3 hours late, a small boat appeared on the horizon. But the man in it was not the finely dressed warrior anyone expected. Musashi looked completely unkempt. His hair was a mess, his clothes were shabby, he looked like he'd just woken up, and he wasn't even carrying his famous 2 swords. While being rowed to the island, he had apparently taken a spare oar from the boatman and carved it into a crude, oversized wooden sword. Then, in a final, brilliant act of psychological warfare, he deliberately made it just a bit longer than Kojiro's legendary long blade. Musashi stepped onto the shore. the clumsy wooden oar over his shoulder. The sight was one of pure contempt. Kojiro, his mind already shredded by the 3-hour wait, was pushed over the edge. Screaming with rage, he drew his magnificent blade, and in a gesture of absolute finality, threw his scabbard into the sea. He was signaling this was a fight to the death. Musashi just smiled, and as he approached his fuming rival, he delivered the fatal verbal blow. "If you have no more use for your sheath," he said calmly, "you are already dead." In that moment, the duel was over. Kojiro's mind, swallowed by rage and stripped of all discipline, was broken. He lunged forward impulsively with the first reckless attack. Musashi, in total control, easily countered and brought his wooden oar down on Kojiro's head with a single fatal blow. Japan's most refined swordsman was defeated by a man with a piece of wood. But the real weapon wasn't the oar. The weapon was the 3-hour delay. The weapon was the unkempt hair. The weapon was that infuriating, calm smile. Musashi had won the battle long before he ever set foot on the island. He won by weaponizing his timeline. So what exactly did Musashi do? What can we learn from this? His strategy really breaks down into 3 brilliant principles that apply to any conflict. Whether it's on a beach, in feudal Japan, or in a modern boardroom. Principle 1. Shatter expectations. The power of disruption. Every conflict, from a formal duel to a simple argument, has an expected rhythm. A script Kojiro prepared for a duel between equals. Following a ritual he'd practiced his whole life, he expected punctuality, respect, and an opponent armed with fine steel. Musashi threw that script out the window. The lateness, the messy appearance, the wooden sword. Each one was a disruption of the established pattern. This throws an opponent's brain for a loop. Their mind, prepared for one scenario, is suddenly scrambling to process a reality it doesn't understand. This forces them off their game plan and into improvisation. And an opponent who's improvising is an opponent who's making mistakes. By controlling the how and when, Musashi controlled the entire fight. Principle 2. Calculated disrespect. Weaponizing the ego. Sasaki Kojiro was a master with a huge reputation. His entire identity was built on his skill and the honor that came with it. Musashi saw Kojiro's greatest strength, his pride, and correctly identified it as his greatest weakness. Every action Musashi took was a calculated jab at that pride. Arriving late wasn't just bad manners, it was a statement that Kojiro wasn't worth being on time for. Showing up looking like a mess wasn't just sloppiness, it was a non-verbal message that this duel was beneath him. And using a wooden oar, that was the ultimate mockery of Kojiro's prized sword. This wasn't just personal, it was a tactical assault on his opponent's ego. Musashi knew that once you've triggered someone's ego, you've taken control of their emotions. An emotional opponent is a predictable one. When Kojiro threw his scabbard into the water, it was the final proof that he'd lost control. He was no longer a strategist. He was just a container for rage, and his rage made him blind. Principle 3. The power of patience, the art of non-reaction. Think about it. The most powerful person in any room is often the one who is least reactive. But our world trains us for the exact opposite. An email is marked urgent, and we feel a jolt of anxiety. Someone raises their voice, and our own heart starts to pound. We're conditioned to match the tempo of anyone who challenges us. Musashi understood that true power lies in refusing to play at the enemy's tempo. While Kojiro's anger grew hotter and hotter on that beach, Musashi was calm, cool, and in control. He was on the boat, carving his oar, dictating the entire flow of events. He controlled the timeline because he controlled his own reactions. Mastery isn't about having the fastest response, it's about having the most deliberate one. By mastering your own patience, you force your opponent to reveal their impatience. You make them fill the silence. You make them escalate, and in doing so, they show their hand. Patience isn't passive, it's an offensive weapon. Modern application, weaponizing your timeline. The world of the samurai is long gone, but the battlefield of the mind is still here. The same tactics Musashi used to break Kojiro can be adapted for the conflicts in our lives. Here's how you can start weaponizing your own timeline. Technique 1. The strategic pause. In a heated negotiation or a difficult conversation, your gut instinct is to fire back immediately. Don't institute a tactical pause. When asked a tough question, take 3 full seconds of silence before you answer. Let it hang in the air. This tiny delay does 2 things. It stops you from giving a knee-jerk emotional response, and it subtly shifts the power dynamic. The other person, often uncomfortable with silence, might jump in and reveal more than they intended. You disrupt their rhythm and impose your own. Technique 2. Control the environment. Musashi used the isolated island and the rising sun to his advantage. You can do the same even without an island. If you have to have a serious talk, don't let it happen in a chaotic office. Choose a neutral space where you feel in control. Instead of accepting a meeting on someone else's terms, suggest a time and place that works for you. This isn't about being difficult. It's about refusing to give up the home field advantage before the game even starts. Technique 3. Subvert material expectations. In a world obsessed with status symbols, the expensive suit, the fancy title, the luxury car, you can gain an edge by deliberately sidestepping them. This doesn't mean you have to look unkempt like Musashi, but it's about showing that your confidence isn't tied to external things. It's the billionaire in a simple t-shirt, or the expert who uses plain language instead of confusing jargon. When your authority doesn't come from the usual symbols, you become unpredictable, and that makes you formidable. The duel on Ganryu wasn't really a story about swords. It was a story about strategy. It teaches us that the biggest battles aren't won by meeting force with more force, but by understanding your opponent's mind and dismantling their reality before the fight even begins. Miyamoto Musashi's legacy isn't just his undefeated record. It's his profound understanding that timing is everything. Not just the timing of a sword strike, but the timing of your arrival, your words, and even your silence. He teaches us to stop being a slave to other people's timelines and start becoming the architect of our own. True power isn't about being faster or stronger, it's about controlling the when and the how of every engagement. It's understanding that the real battlefield is your opponent's mind. Win the war inside their head, and the physical victory is just a formality. If you got some value from this lesson from the Master Strategist, subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into philosophy and the art of victory. And let us know in the comments which of Musashi's principles will you apply in your own life.